early 20s, aeronauts strove to perfect a strange windmill on wheels called the helicopter. This French model flew for only a few precarious moments and never got as high as an elephant's eye. Yet its achievement was a new world record and an important advance in aviation.
Pile for the woods, she's running wild. A pilot could easily lose his head if he ran in the wrong direction. Early helicopters were dangerous. Careful, men. Watch out for tricks. In Detroit, the first umbrella helicopter makes its bow. As light as lead and cast iron could make her, this undergrown carousel was supposed to jump into the air. Try this on your next hangover. Back in France, there appeared a new kind of copter driven by a pair of oversized pinwheels. This aerial bucking Bronco had the stability of an intoxicated chorus girl and required a ground crew skilled in the 100-yard dash. A gas bag and a pilot were added for control. Some control. Just let her loose, and where she goes, nobody knows. They called her the Flying Sausage, but to that perspiring ground crew, she was just a lot of baloney. This is how they got airsick back in 1921.
Longed for this invention as a means of transport since we watched James Bond fly using a similar gadget. The jetpack is a real device, propelled by jets of escaping gases that lift a single traveller into the air, allowing him to fly. It started being developed in the 1960s when sci-fi technology was actually available, and it has been used for astronauts' extravehicular activities. However, the Earth's gravity and the difficult adaptation of the human body to flying naturally have been the main obstacles for not using it in the army or as a means of personal transport.
The Starnberger Sea. This is one for the traveller who doesn't mind roughing it a bit. Recommended as a cure for seasickness, it's a water walker, the latest craze among Bavarian water sports fans. A simple instrument with complicated measurements, it's a bike without wheels, but with twice as much need for pedalling. There'll be no complaints from would-be travellers so long as the pedalling doesn't lead to paddling. Back on the world market come the labels marked Made in Germany. Heading a parade of gadgets is the pocket bicycle, carried in a small bag that can be put together and taken apart in less than 3 minutes. It costs no more than the ordinary machine. Object of the lightweight frame is to improve spring suspension on bad roads. Designed by a Munich mechanic, the folding bike sets out for a place in the pockets of cycling enthusiasts everywhere. Gadget number 2 goes on show on the Starnberger Sea. This is one for the traveller who doesn't mind roughing it a bit. Recommended as a cure for seasickness, it's a water walker, the latest craze among Bavarian water sports fans. A simple instrument with complicated measurements, it's a bike without wheels, but with twice as much need for pedalling.
road casualties. To prevent this, several pedestrian safety scoops were designed during the 1920s, often attached to the radiator or the bumpers of the vehicle. When the scoop or the net touched an obstacle, it would automatically drop to the ground and push it away.
It can be fitted to bumpers or take the place of them, and it folds neatly away when it isn't eating pedestrians. A flick of a lever, and the scoop has another mouthful. When the scoop is open, a jaywalker simply can't get run over.
New cars getting bigger and parking spaces getting smaller. At Piedmont, California, an inventor has developed something to soothe the motorist's headache by putting the spare tire to work. He calls this device the Park Car and says it can be installed on any model. Watch how it works. Taking power from the drive shaft, the spare tire swings the rear end into the clear. Then he just retracts the spare, backs into the street, and away we go. It's handy for parking in inaccessible garages, too. Here's a narrow driveway, but with the spare tire put to work, the car can turn a complete circle in its own radius, and parking is simple indeed. Even
in the automobile engine, this mixing of air and gasoline is done in the carburetor. It begins in a tunnel through which the air sweeps at a speed sometimes as high as 800 miles per hour. This whirlwind races past the mouth of a small tube and carries the droplets of gasoline into the intake manifold and onto the engine. This funnel is called the Venturi tube. It controls the speed of the air. Air has to go faster to get through the small opening. As the air goes faster and faster, it breaks the gasoline into even smaller drops. Now we let in more air and further thin out the mixture until we get the correct proportion for power and economy. The up-to-date carburetor is a higher development. There are float chambers to regulate the fuel supply, different jets for better speeds, Venturi rings for better mixing, metering pins, throttles, needle valves and chokes for control and economy. All the features that engineers have designed with great care to make sure of economical results. But the principle is still the same. The carburetor has but one purpose, and that is to mix a little drop of gasoline with a great big bubble of free air. In a one-cylinder engine made for laboratory experiments, we can see through a quartz glass window the burning as it occurs like lightning. The development of these modern methods of mixing gasoline with air, together with the improvements made in gasoline pump, intake manifold, and cylinder head design, have resulted in increased mileage per gallon of gasoline. Let's prove it. Let's see just how much air is actually used in the modern automobile. We'll take all the air that goes into the carburetor from this big balloon and the gasoline from this tube. The balloon holds 15 cubic feet of air, and the tube contains only 3 tablespoonfuls of gasoline. Here's a race that's worth watching. A race to see how much gasoline we need while using enough air to run our car 1/4 of a mile. the air, and the race is over. We've gone just exactly 1/4 of a mile. But look, we still have some of the gasoline. Less than 3 tablespoonfuls of gasoline to travel 1/4 of a mile. In fact, 1 tablespoonful of gasoline is mixed with about 43 gallons of air to make the fuel for the modern motor car. Progress through constant movement has reduced fuel consumption importantly, taking advantage of every opportunity to burn less gasoline and use free air.
And if traffic was bad, the parking problem was impossible, just like now. So one California genius disproved the simile useless as a fifth wheel. His fifth wheel aimed sideways, and with it you could sneak into the tightest hole.
More autos meant, alas, more accidents. A problem this inventor solved with a crash-proof bumper, only to discover he had also invented the world's most rapid exit.